Well, it looks like the heavy dirt work is just finishing up on the very top of the levee. All that heavy equipment's going to move up here and start laying out the main build site. Now, we had to shift some things around, and today you'll find out why. But the plans are off to the builder, and he's ready to go, and you'll get a sneak peek at those plans today. Well, I'm standing in the bottom of the pond probably for the last time on dry ground because the rains are going to come and it's going to fill up. When you build a pond, there's a lot of things that go into it, but really the levee and the compaction of the levee is one of the critical aspects. We chose an area that's between two ridges, so that was already a natural flow of water coming down into here. And the levee just plugged that up. But we came off of those ridges and captured that ridge at the same height. So there was no build behind that. The other thing is, as they're going down, excavators will find different types of soil, okay? Luckily for us, this type of soil was yellow clay. Yellow clay is a very fine particulate type of matter that seals really, really well. If you have it on your garden, you don't like it. But if you have it in your pond, it's wonderful. But as he's digging down and going around into these different slopes, sometimes he'll run into sand, sometimes he'll run into shale rock. That's another thing you can run into. So it's very critical that he move around and take it from the best type of clay to get that levee built. So he had to move from left wall to right wall and make sure that he had an ideal compaction on that levee. And I think he did a great job. One of the things we've learned is it's extremely important to listen to professionals when you lay something out. And your excavator is a wealth of knowledge. Some people say, I want a pond right here, and the excavator might try to talk them out of it, but they say, no, I want the pond right here. Well, it's not a good idea. The excavator knows the land, they know the material they need for the pond, they know how water flows. Well, our excavator recommended we move our pond from over there to here, and I'm really glad he did it. I think this is a great site. We have what he had estimated was a 24-foot levee. I think it's up to 26 feet now. It's really worked out well, although it's interesting, once you clear the trees and you take that laser and you shoot those elevations again, land can be very, very deceptive. And so what you thought was flat is not flat, and what you thought was a slope is not a slope. So I'm going to take you over here and show you exactly what I mean by that. So initially this was the house site, but after we cleared the trees, set the pond, and shot the lasers again, we realized that from the arena to the house, and from the house right over there, it's about a 6.5 foot drop. Well, that's not a good thing to do because you're going to put the house in the way of the water flow. You're going to have to drop the house down, move the arena down, and it was just creating a mess uphill. So we've shifted everything. What we did was we brought the house uphill, and this is probably, although it doesn't look like it, this is roughly 4.5 feet higher than it was before. That also allows us to have less of a retaining wall and more of a backfill on the back side of the house, so it's not a full walkout basement. We really want the insulating properties of the earth to help us out, especially in that bottom floor, so I don't want a lot of it exposed to the outside. So now the house has moved back this way. Well, what that does is now I have to clear more trees to the east to make sure that I get that morning sun on the solar panels. But the other thing it does is it moves our arena back up, further uphill to allow better drainage. So let's go over and look at that. So now we ran into a little snafu when we got this cleared and we began to move things around. I had all these logs put behind me. Well, as it turns out, we found out that where the logs are is the ideal location for the arena. So we're going to have to move those. Now, some of you say, well, that's a big waste of time. Well, really, probably in a day's worth of work, we can move those logs, but this is going to be a lifetime of repercussions if I don't put things in the right place. So we have now come up to almost the highest point on our property. and it slopes off towards the pond, and it slopes off towards some lowland in the back. Our old reggae farm, we had a nightmare because the barn and the house were put at the bottom of it, not at the total bottom of the hill, but it was put on a slope. And so all water ran towards the house and ran towards the barn. And we had multiple problems with that. We will not make that mistake. So taking the day's worth of work and moving those logs and getting up here on this plain area is ideal. But we still have some issues with this. So let's take a look at those. So the great thing about this location is that probably 90% of it is relatively level. And so when you build a structure, it's ideal if you cut into virgin ground and you're putting your footers and everything on virgin ground, because you can backfill something and you can compact it all you want, but when you build on that, over the years there can be some more settling. So one area we have, and it's a very small area, is right by this stump here. We have a drop, and it's about a 4-foot drop, okay? So ideally, you know, we'll level it all and we'll get that dirt over there and we'll compact it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a longer post, because that's the corner of my arena, and then I have more arena behind it and then paddocks behind that. So I'm going to take that corner of the arena, I'm going to make the post a little bit longer, and I'm going to drop concrete footers down at the bottom of that and then gravel on top of that. Because I want, if there's any settling in that corner, in that 4 feet of compacted dirt, it will not affect the structure itself, it will only affect the floor. So since we have to move our log pile, we're going to move it right here, which means I have to move my Connex with all my household goods in it. I'm not sure how it's going to fare too well on the inside, but we'll make do. But this spot actually where we're stacking all the wood and milling all the wood is going to eventually be the garden. So having a bunch of sawdust there and bark and stuff that falls off the logs is actually a good thing. And it also gets me in gear, because come next spring when Danielle wants to plant, I better have those logs done. Well, we've had a lot of comments and a lot of questions. Where are your floor plans? Can I see your floor plans? Well, today you're going to see them. But first, we'd like to say how we got there. You know, when you're trying to live off-grid, the key is reduce, 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 reduce. Now, you can build a tiny home, and it's great. I mean, it's cheaper to build, it's cheaper to maintain, it's cheaper to heat and cool. There's a lot of great advantages to a very small home. And we even considered that and maybe making several outbuildings. But we also
Then we moved into a 150 square foot RV and thought again.
Yeah, that's true. That kind of helped increase the floor plan.
It was a good trial.
It was a great trial. I will say though that we thought about how we use Reggae Farm, and it was not only just a place for 8 people to live, but it was also the storefront. All of our business was done on the front porch and in the living room, the dining room, and we had an office in there. It was also the guest house. We had woofers, we had interns, we had guests just coming to visit and see the place. We had big dinners. You know, when my brother-in-law comes over, we have, what do we have? 10 kids and 4 adults, and then Grandma and Grandpa came. We had 6 adults and 10 kids in the same house. But I digress. We decided, you know what, let's start with a 20 by 40 foot box. And we started looking at that, and my architect cousin said, you're looking at it the wrong way. You're starting from the outside and looking in. You need to start from what living spaces do you want, and then build out and see what footprints you get. Well, that was a great way to do it. Yeah, definitely a great way to do it, because even though it changed the whole
literally flipped our entire house. I'd spent about 70 hours drawing it out on my program, and it just all went out the window and we started over. Pretty much.
Yeah, and things he started bringing up codes and codes. I know some people don't like codes, but some of the codes are very important, and they give you good flow in the house. They give you safety.
I'll give you one example there.
Yeah.
One of the things he said was you need 3 feet between a bed and a wall. And my first thought was, that's ridiculous. I don't need 3 feet. I'm just walking in there to sleep.
So you don't break your pinky toe, right?
Well, now, you know, our RV has about 18 inches between the bed and the wall, and that's where we have to change clothes. Well, I find myself literally laying down on the bed to put my pants on. Now, mind you, I have some joint issues, so I'm not as flexible as the kids, but it's pretty inconvenient. That 3 feet makes a lot of sense now.
Well, and it's not just the code, it's the flow of the house. Sometimes builders and draftsmen and stuff don't necessarily think about that. I think architects are actually trained in that. What is the flow of the house? When you walk from this space to this space,
do you run into a corner?
That's
or a
right.
shelf?
Is there a post in your way? You know, do you have enough room from the laundry room to walk with that basket out of the laundry room, down the hall, and into the bedrooms? All sorts of things you need to look at for flow. Now, it increased the footprint a little bit. Realize it started with a 25, 40-foot box, and it was really close to that in the end. Now, separating...
About 22 by 48 is what our final came out.
Now, separating into 2 floors, it gave us about 2,000 square foot of living space in a relatively small footprint.
Yep.
So we're pretty happy with what we had.
We've also... That 22 by 48 square feet is, 22 by 48 box is the main living area of the house.
Yeah.
But one of the things we decided, based on our previous winters and ice storms, is that we wanted access to a lot of other areas that might normally be away from the house. So we've actually joined our Wallapini to the house. We have joined a larder and a root cellar with home access. We have a mudroom. It's an unconditioned space. We also have an outdoor kitchen, which is an unconditioned space. But we've put these additional rooms in with direct access from the main house, so we don't even have to go outdoors. It just makes everything more efficient, less steps throughout the day, better use of time.
All consolidated.
So we'll explain further as time goes on, but right now, let's take a look at those plans.
This is a view of the south side of the house. Notice it's covered with windows to allow direct sunlight in the wintertime. The upper windows, or the clear story, will be vented to allow ventilation or hot air to leave the top. In the foreground, you see the top of the Wallapini. On the west side, you see an unconditioned space, which is actually a summer kitchen and an airlock entrance into the west side of the building. On the east side, you see the overhang to provide shade in the summertime. So we're looking at the west end of the house, and please forgive some of the artistry here because it was a $3 program, so it's not the greatest. What we wanted to show you here was the actual overhang on the southern side. Now on the north side, the overhang of the roof is only about 1 foot, but on the south side, it's actually just over 2 feet for both the lower roof and the upper roof over the clear story, and it's about 16 inches above the top of the window. Now these actual angles are calculated using a formula for our latitude to make sure that we get full shade in the summer when it's hot and full sun in the winter when it's cold. Now we're taking a top-down look. I want to point out that on the east and the west side of the house, those are unconditioned spaces to provide shade in the morning and the afternoon for the hot summer sun. In the winter, those are airlocks to provide entry into the house without a direct door to the outside. So both in the summer and winter, it provides insulation for the inner core of the house, which is the center rectangle. Now, it looks like there's a wall right down the middle going from left to right. It's actually not a wall. That depicts where the clear story is. Again, another limitation of our program. But what that shows you is that that sunlight coming through those upper windows goes right to the back of the house in the wintertime and provides light to the back of the house in the summertime. But on the north wall, which is the top of your page, there are very few windows, and the windows that are there are very small. I want a lot of insulation back there, although I do want to be able to see out and get a little bit of light. Mostly, that is to watch what's going on in the garden and out at the barn, but provide good insulation in the back by keeping most of that wall solid. What it also shows from this top-down view is something I read
in a book a while back about the passive solar homes, putting functional rooms on the north side and putting the living space on the south side. You see the dining room, the living room, and the master bedroom all looking out over our bonus pond. Now we have a great view over the pond. You also notice that the indoor kitchen is right there by the dining room. Now as you step outside into that airlock area that we talked about, the unconditioned space, you have the summer kitchen. And that keeps the heat from cooking outside during the summer, but keeps the heat from cooking inside during the winter. But both of those spaces are right next to the dining room to provide good traffic flow. On the northeast corner of the house, you'll notice the mudroom. And that door is easy access to the garden, the outside exit to the Wallapini, the barn, and the arena. Essentially, the places we spend most of our time. The other interesting thing about that door is it actually faces directly east. So people will not confuse that door with the main entrance of the house, which is on the west side. Kind of critical when you come up to a house and you see two doors and you don't know which one to go into. Well, you're not going to see this one. Now let's take a walk down the winder stairs. The winder has the space saving of a spiral, but the safety and the elbow room of a standard stairwell. When we're in the basement, we now see that it's a lot more compact than the upstairs because it doesn't have the east and west unconditioned spaces. But the center area goes directly out to the Wallapini, as well as directly back to the larder and the root cellar. The larder and the root cellar are completely underground, and they're two separate spaces because they're two separate environments that we're trying to create. The larder will be cool and dry, but not nearly as cool as the root cellar. And the root cellar's humidity should be a little bit higher. So you would store different types of fruits, vegetables, and grains in the different rooms throughout the winter and the summer. Now, exiting the root cellar, the program really didn't allow us to put the steep clamshell door exit of a root cellar that you typically see, but that's what we're going to use. So it just shows a long staircase. But it actually exits right outside and parallel to the mudroom exit, which again is for convenience. For the bedrooms, we wanted natural light coming into those bedrooms. And I know some people don't like codes, but by code, you should have an immediate exit to the outside in each bedroom. And so these exit windows are big and they provide a safety feature too. In the girls' room, they can actually exit directly to the Wallapini. And then we have a door to the Wallapini also. But you'll see that the light floods in from the Wallapini into the girls' bedroom. This continues to follow the plan of functional rooms on the north side and living spaces on the south side. In the back, we have the utility room. We have a bathroom that's actually split. That way kids can prepare to leave in the morning at the sinks and the valets, which will be double, and other people can be in the shower or the restroom if necessary. There's also storage under those winder stairs. And lastly, we have the Wallapini. This is going to be significantly different than the last one we built at the previous farm. It's nice that it's going to be attached to the house because, well, we don't have to walk 500 feet down the driveway to get to it. The other thing is we can enter from the house so we don't spill in cold air in the winter time. And we don't need necessarily all the thermal mass that we used with the water in the old Wallapini. We can use the thermal mass of the house and the integrated concrete forms. So we're not exactly sure how the grow beds are going to go, but we're pretty excited about this new design and the fact that it's right there accessible at all times.
So there you have it, the big plans unveiled.
It's a rough look of the house, and thanks to Danielle for the computer work on that. It wasn't high-tech software, but it worked. The real plans are off of the builder, and we're really excited about that. And we're going to continue this journey, and maybe when we relax a year or two from now, we might write about all this, so we kind of consolidate all the information into one so you don't have to watch 40 videos. But in any event, if you've subscribed, thank you so much, and we love your comments. If you haven't, please subscribe, and we'll see you next week.